Hello, I'm Yossi Abraham, and welcome to CX Tech Talk, sponsored by Zappix. This is a conversation about the intersection of AI and customer experience. Today, we're very happy to be joined by Apurv Gupta, a transformational healthcare executive with over 2 decades of experience leading clinical innovation and organizational revitalization. Rooted in internal medicine, public health, and health policy from institutions like Harvard and Brown, he is also renowned as a founder of a Loving Organizations Movement, a nonprofit promoting compassion-driven organization change. Welcome, Apu.
Wow. Yeah. So thank you so much, Yossi. Really appreciate that kind introduction and the welcome to this program.
Thank you. So, to start off, can you share a bit about your background and experience?
Sure, absolutely. I think you covered a lot of it, so I won't try to get into the details, but I'm an internal medicine physician. I worked as a hospitalist for many years, and over the years, I kind of became very drawn into the administrative side of the work. And so I worked as a medical director of a hospitalist group, and then I was chief medical officer at a couple of different community hospitals before coming into consulting for the last 12 years. I've been doing performance improvement consulting with three different consulting firms, mostly working with health systems and physician groups on how we can improve efficiency, cost, quality, and such. And then over the last decade, I've gotten deeper into the culture transformation aspects of our business, such as when we deal with things at the level of accountability, decision making, communication. We've generally found that we're more successful with our performance improvement activities. So that layer has come of late. And that eventually wound up leading into what you just introduced as the loving organization. It's just an opportunity to kind of combine culture transformation with performance improvement in a systems-driven way so that we're trying to bring more human factors-based approach to healthcare, love and compassion, respect, trust, kindness, all of these elements, but not by expecting more out of our people. It's by leveraging the systems of an organization.
That's amazing because I really love the notion of using the systems in order to drive more human compassion, human love, and this is great to hear. So before we start to go deeper into the conversation about technology, AI, and so on, I wanted your perspective on one thing. If you need to explain what AI is to your mother or grandmother, how would you do it?
Yeah, and it's not so easy
No,
to
it's not.
do, right? Right. Essentially, I guess the way in which we're interacting with AI, kind of like what's catching all the buzz, is the large language models.
Yes.
So that's probably what what we are can refer to. Of course, there's many other aspects of AI in terms of machine learning and such, but I think we're talking more about LLMs. And there, interestingly enough, it's actually come up recently. Just encouraging people to interact with AI, talk to it really is probably the easiest thing that people can understand. There's not much to explain even at that point, just to say, hey, try it out. Why don't you have a conversation in your own natural language? A friend and I were playing around with this with his dad the other day, just about a month ago. He hadn't used it before, and we said, well, let's just show him how it works. So we took it out and started having a conversation with ChatGPT. And
Yes.
he was blown away. And even in that same conversation, we said, well, let's speak to it in Hindi. Let's speak to it in Gujarati. And amazingly enough, ChatGPT was able to have like an incredible, very nuanced and very appropriate conversation in other languages. So I feel like rather than even telling,
Yeah.
sometimes it's showing and sometimes it's just doing that makes most of the difference. Another friend of mine said the same thing, that they had just set it up, ChatGPT, for their mother and just encourage them to start talking to it. So I think that that's probably maybe a cop out to your question because
Yeah.
it's so hard to explain. Rather than explain, sometimes what we can show is the power of the large language models
Yeah.
by demonstrating them in action.
And it reminds me, several days ago, my father, who is in his early 80s, sent us a picture to all of the kids of his mother and his three siblings when they were young, 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 like really kids. And it was, of course, a black and white picture. So I went to Gemini AI and I asked it to put color, make this a color in picture. And I tried it with GPT. I tried it with Gemini, and it was amazing. And I sent it to my father, and he told me, "How did you do that?" I told him, just ask AI to do it, and that's it. So it is amazing. As you said, experiment, try, and there's so many personal applications for it before we start to speak about, healthcare and so on. And this leads me to my next question, which is, what was your personal experience with AI, and how has it grown over the last several years?
Yeah. Well, honestly, with a lot of things technical, I find like I'm sort of on the leading edge, but not the cutting edge.
That's
I'm
a nice
always
definition.
interested in trying to understand what's happening, but I'm usually not the innovator and I'm not, even in the vanguard. And that's happened to me with the internet, with social media. So it's kind of a pattern that I've been noticing. A really good friend of mine who I went to medical school with, it tends to be more out on the cutting edge, and he's trying these things beforehand. Usually I learn about these things from him. And when he starts talking about it, then I know I need to pay attention. It's like, oh, this must be something interesting. So in the same way, I feel the same with AI. For the most part, I hadn't really done much with it.
Okay.
And then in the last 6 months, I've been exploring using AI quite actively, and I found it to be incredibly remarkable. So I kind of call it my own creative cycle, where I'll read something, and then I might take that idea to a collaborator of mine, and we'll talk about that idea, and we'll maybe build up on it a little bit and say, hey, what if we did X or Y or Z? And then I will be able to take that idea to ChatGPT and have ChatGPT help embellish and build out that idea and brainstorm that idea with me, kind of really being as a creator and
Yeah.
a contributor and a producer. And now that product that ChatGPT comes up with is phenomenal. It's been really remarkable to see that it can develop content at that level of quality is what I would
Yeah.
say. It's not accuracy because we're not looking at scientific type things. We're looking more at brainstorming and new ways
Yeah.
of managing and new ways of leading. And so in that sense, it's more creative energy is what's being unleashed. I will usually take that document back to then my collaborator or collaborators and share it with them. And every single one is like usually blown away. They're like, we cannot believe that ChatGPT, could have come up with something like this. It takes our creativity and collaboration to a different level because now when we leave a meeting, we're no longer waiting for, the next meeting,
Yeah.
in order to do something. We're not setting up a series of meetings where the collaboration is being driven through the meetings themselves. We now have external agents and partners that can help us shrink the time that's required to be creative and to be collaborative. So it's from what I find, it's a kind of a remarkable agent that's operating at a very high level. It's operating at a super creative level. It's not just helping me do things, that are making life easier or faster for me. It's
Yeah.
actually generating amazing ideas. And so it's shrinking time and it's driving the collaborative process.
I love it. And if we now start to speak more about healthcare, um, what would you say are the main challenges that the healthcare providers are facing today before we speak about AI? What are the challenges they are trying to overcome today?
Yeah, in general, I think it's something we've all recognized and, kind of seeing the impact of it. Healthcare providers are really overwhelmed, overburdened. They're feeling like they have too much work that they're not really able to keep up with. And the systems within which they're working are not functioning at a level that makes their work easier. So unfortunately, those systems are often adding irritations and frustrations to their day-to-day work. So it's making them even more frustrated at the end of the day. To some extent, you could say some of those systems are contributing to disengagement and burnout, which has become a huge problem in healthcare. In many disciplines, the burnout rate is up to 50% across
Wow.
medical disciplines, nursing disciplines, now even pharmacy, therapists, technicians, and even managers and leaders are actually burning out. There's like to the level of overwhelmingness and overwork, I think is really huge. And of course, you asked me not to get into it, but I think that's prelude to what
Yeah.
I think is the promise of AI is that hopefully it can help relieve some of this workload burden.
Yes, absolutely. So let's speak about that. So where are the areas within healthcare that you think that technology, AI, automation can help relieve some of those challenges or
Mhm.
workloads?
Absolutely. Yes. And even before AI, we had
Yeah.
RPA and we had other
Yeah. That's why I said
technology.
automation, because not everything
Yeah.
is AI. It's
Exactly, exactly. And much of that has been, happening in the
yeah,
back office, in revenue cycle, supply chain, that where there's pharmacy, there are processes that don't really involve humans to some extent that can be more easily automated. And we've seen a lot of people gravitate towards
yeah,
that to try to make that more efficient and make it more productive. I'm always a big proponent of let's bring this to the front lines because again, what I see in my day-to-day work is the burden that the doctors, nurses, and other clinicians and staff are carrying. So where I'd like to really see AI being applied is in how is it going to make the workflows easier? How is it going to make the day-to-day work of taking care of patients easier? Certainly, we've been hearing about a lot of ambient
yeah,
documentation. That's one solution that I think is really, for the most part, although you're starting to hear a little bit of some concerns about it too, but for the most part, I would say ambient listening, documentation has kind of been a game changer. To all my friends who I speak to who are primary care physicians, especially, they're saying that it's saving 2 to 3 hours a day of
it's
time,
amazing. Yeah.
reducing pajama time. It's like incredible to think about. So there's no way they could think of going back and not having ambient listening. And I think that as a result, ambient listening is really spreading. Now, other people are sharing a little bit of, well, yes, ambient listening is great, but the notes are so long. Now you can't read them because it's taking the entire conversation. So there are probably aspects of it that we still will need to
Yes.
fine tune. But from a pure workload impact perspective, I think that's certainly helpful. Things like inbox management, I think, is very helpful, kind of helping people within the electronic medical record.
Yes.
AI can go in and kind of do a triage of what's in the inbox and who does it need to go to. Maybe everything doesn't need to go to the doctor or the nurse, and it could be sent to an office manager or even an automated response. Again, when I speak to friends about it, they say, well, yes, it's helpful, but it only probably saves about 20%. Most of the stuff still needs to come to me. So I think that that probably still needs more ongoing refinement, but I consider that to be hopeful, even if it's able to address some small portion of all the incoming messages that people have to deal with, and maybe
Yes.
AI can help solve that. Another aspect where I think AI is proving helpful is in automating replies. To patients. And actually, as you probably are aware, many people have found that AI agents are even more empathetic than doctors when they're creating replies because the AI can do it very quickly. I mean, time
Yeah.
is not a factor with AI. Humans can be very empathetic, but humans unfortunately are operating under significant time pressures. A doctor may have to see a new patient every 15 minutes, and so they really don't have the time to go to the email and construct it as carefully as they would want. But an AI agent is able to do that. So again, friends of mine are telling me that they really like that, that they have an auto-generated email that has been generated by the AI that they just need to look over and approve and then they can send out. So that's also saving them time. And in the process, the AI is not only becoming a automation agent, but it's being an empathetic agent on their behalf. So it's able to capture and generate empathy that otherwise the physician may have been too rushed to try to capture.
Yeah. And when we're looking at it from Zappix, we're actually looking at different manual processes that require a lot of time from really the short-staffed admin people, operations people, and some examples are even as basic as receiving RX refills via fax that you want to afterwards contact the patient about. So, thinking about automating the entire receiving those faxes in a digital mode, doing the OCR or applying AI to extract the exact fields from it, and then doing the outreach in an automated way to the patient and saying, do you really need the refill for this and that medication? And negating the need for humans to do this repetitive, mundane, almost no value task of taking a fax and typing in those words. So that's on one extreme. The other extreme is even looking at how can we help care by looking into the EMR records and identifying gaps with even medication. Are they is the medication, does it coincide with the doctor's orders and so on? In the notes, the doctor might write something, but in the medication part, it might be different. So looking at those gaps using AI, LLMs, and so on. So there are, I think we're starting, and we need to remember also AI is really at the beginning. We're really, really at the beginning. Automation is we have been using it for many years, but the LLMs, the machine learning, and all of that, we're just at the early years of it, and I still think that 3, 5 years out, we cannot even imagine where we'll be at this point, which is amazing. Yeah, so it is really amazing. But
Totally agree with
I
you. Yes, I mean, who can even tell where this is going because it's come so fast and it's already making such a dramatic,
yeah,
impact. I think that the promise is truly, something that's going to be worth beholding and for us to visualize and bringing into reality. It's not simply something that's going to happen. It's all of us going to be
yes,
involved in helping to make it happen.
yes. And I want to connect that with the loving organization because
Mhm.
one of the questions that I'm always asking myself, as not from a professional point of view, but from as a person, how do you balance between AI and maintaining that human touch? And I think that part of the work that you guys are doing is very relevant here.
hmm Yeah, I appreciate that you're bringing that back. Actually, we many of us were at AI Med just last week in San Diego, talking about some of these topics, and a lot of this interest at that conference actually is about trust and ethics and empathy and how are you going to bring that into the equation. And people realize that as capable as the AI agents are, that they still need to have that human element, embedded in it, which can often be done by the way in which not only is the AI designed and the intentionality, but also by the creating governance structures that help to oversee the deployment of the AI, so we know that it's having the intended impact and not a negative consequence that we weren't foretelling. So we're calling it we call that the human in the loop when in the technical process. When there's a clinical process underway, you want a human in the loop, such as what we were talking about, generating a empathetic message back to a patient. Well, you
Yeah,
don't want the AI to just generate it and send it. You want their human to kind of look through it and say, yeah,
yeah,
this is relevant and I approve it before sending it out. So in the technical part of it, there's a reason and a need to make sure that there's a human with their judgment and experience and perspective. They have fallibilities and biases too. So
of
it's
course.
not like humans are perfect, but we still want the humans in the loop to make sure that whatever it is that is being communicated that has clinical import ultimately has a human involved. And then there's a human throughout the loop component that you can think of as a circle around that technical piece, which is as the AI is being developed, as it's being implemented, as it's being tested, as it's being validated, how are we making sure that humans are part of that process? So that's kind of where good governance comes in, and using the standards comes in, knowing what standards have been built into the AI,
Yes,
and are we ensuring security and confidentiality and privacy as we're building the AI. All of that kind of goes around the technical piece, and I think is important to making sure that the human element is built in. From a love and empathy perspective specifically, I think a lot of it goes back to recognizing that we're not just trying to drive productivity and efficiency so we can make doctors and nurses work even harder, which will then ultimately, kind of continue to burn them out and make them more frustrated and disengaged. But it's about really being productive and efficient, but also empathetic and loving at the same time to our own staff as well as to our patients. So there's ways to design solutions that ultimately help make it easier for our clinicians to operate in the way that they would like. Certainly, there will be productivity efficiency gains over time, but it's important to also capture the human interactions that we're trying to ultimately make easier through AI.
and I also think that by automating, by applying AI, and by removing some of those repetitive tasks from the healthcare staff, you also give them more space and more time to show more compassion, to show more love, because they're not bogged down by administrative work all the time and by time pressure and so on. Hopefully
Yeah.
that also serves. And I love the human in the loop. I think the human in the loop is from the design of the AI experience through keeping the human in the loop throughout the patient experience as we go along, and also in the continuous improvement of our workflows that are implemented with the help of AI technology and so on. So yeah, I wrote down human in the loop just before you started to speak about that,
Yes, there
and
you
then you
go.
just so that was
So now we know we're not just AI agents, right?
yes,
Like we still
yes,
have some human agency that's calling
yeah,
this out. No, but I love, Yossi, what you had to say because I think I totally agree that ultimately it's about being balanced, uh,
yes,
right? I mean, we want the AI component because it will, of course, take out,
yeah, yeah,
those mundane tasks that nobody wants to do that are repetitive and burdensome, and AI can save a ton of time
yeah,
doing that. We just have to remember that the end goal isn't just to produce automatons and to just make ourselves more and more and more efficient to the point of breaking ourselves and breaking our relationships, right? Because health comes from being more holistic about the approach, and it comes from taking care of each other as administrators and clinicians together, as the people behind the scenes that are creating the systems, and the technicians, the clinician, the engineers, all of us working together to create those systems. That's part of it. And then also to be remember that that has to come through in the clinical interaction. So there's an intentionality around making sure that the human centeredness is just as important as is the ethics, is just as important as is the productivity and efficiency.
yeah,
And that's really where I think the threat's going to be is the tendency to think, well, now we've gained so much efficiency, we need fewer humans, or we
yes.
can burden the humans even more so. So I think the true test to AI is going to be, can it really help unleash human potential rather than does it just become another technology that becomes a burden on us?
Absolutely. So I'll ask you to put your visionary hat for now for the next question. And how do you envision AI in the future in regards to patient experience? And if we look out 5 years, 10 years from now, like crazy ideas where you see AI and patient experience are merging together.
Yeah, I love it. And it may not even be 10 years from now
Yeah,
because things are moving so fast. But what I'd love to see, which is not quite there yet, so at least hopefully it's still out in the future, is all of us have a personal AI agent, both as patients and as providers and nurses. Each of us have our own personal agent or multiple agents that are interacting with each other and constantly sort of answering questions, solving workflow problems, solving challenges, that need to be solved across each other. So
yeah,
we are sort of augmented. Truly by the agents that we have, and they're in as part of the real-time interface with each other. So even while you and I are talking, maybe there's an AI agent that's flashing up. Hey, Yossi said this. Maybe you should think about this. These are three interesting points that you had made last time you were speaking to someone else. These could be points to bring up, right? So I could see them some kind of a real time in the clinical encounter augmentation that can happen if the patient has their own agent that's thinking about the conversation, helping the patient process it, maybe even representing some of their family members, like a
yeah,
patient advocate, family advocate in the conversation. So the conversation just becomes richer. I
yes,
can also imagine that it's going to be, may seem like it's going to be very confusing to have this multi-party conversation that's going on and for all of us to keep track of it. But I think it's something that isn't too far off from some of the team meetings that we might already do, or from some group sessions that we would do, or just meetings in general where we're used to engaging with multi-parties.
yeah,
That
correct.
now in this case they will just be able to secure the privacy that and confidentiality that needs to be had, but at the same time they're going to be able to expand our capacity. So instead of us having to leave the conversation, kind of like what I was saying, it's AI has already sped up my collaborative and creative
Yeah,
process. I'm hoping it's going to happen real time. So I don't even leave the conversation. You and I are talking, and the AI agents are there already listening, and they're real time collaborating. Maybe by the time we're done, we already have ahead of us the next steps and kind of a summary document of ideas that we need to develop. So it's kind of bringing the process, making it more proactive, making it more real time. And we're using these agents actively as real-time agents to help answer questions and address workflows.
and I think it complements what I'm thinking about it in the next 5 to 10 years, which is the wearables and hyper personalization. So wearables, as
Mhm.
some of us have the Apple Watch, some of us has the Ring, and so on. And but as we get more and more wearables that collect information about us, And then that's one thing that can feed also the agents that you spoke about. And the second part is hyper-personalization, even to the level of micro of medication that can be tailored specifically for your weight and height and exact specific blood pressure that you are on now and so on. That would be so that's something that I'm thinking, probably not now, but maybe 10 years from now. Why not?
Yes, I
So
love that. Wow, that's a great vision. And I do see how they connect. I think you're right. I mean, it's like the ability to have an agent that's your acting on your behalf will need to be hyper personalized to your
yes,
needs
yes,
and based on your data and based on your genome, based on your labs, based on your personality, based
yes.
on your previous history, and an agent can be able to encapsulate that in a way that we can't even imagine, today.
So last question, and also to summarize some of the topics that we talked about, how do you see companies like Zappix and complement and help healthcare providers in everything around the usage of technology and AI in order to help patients and the systems themselves?
Yeah, I love that. I think that there's definitely a need because there need to be people that are able to put the use cases together and show, physicians and executives what can be done when you carefully construct an approach, make it secure, make it confidential and private, and and not prone to attacks. It's like all those things that we can be done when you have an organization that's kind of standing behind it, and then you can create legitimate use cases that people are willing to test out and use out and say, how can this help me in my day-to-day, operating room? How can it help me in the hospital? How can it help me in the GI suite? Which
Yes,
I know guys have a lot of
yes.
solutions in that area. So I feel like that's a necessary and an important part of the ecosystem that needs to emerge is to have the companies that are adept at creating these solutions that can work as partners with the physicians and health systems.
Perfect. I really want to thank you, Apurv, for this great conversation. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. This was amazing, and you got us to dream a little bit about what's to come. Let's
Yes,
see, maybe some of these dreams will make it into reality.
thank you. Thank you.
A pleasure.